And welcome in, everybody, to the Last Row Podcast, a fan's perspective on sports. It's Brian here inside the ARM Media Solutions Studios on this Tuesday, March the 3rd, 2026. Hope you are well. Hope you are happy wherever it is you are joining us from tonight. Remember, you can catch our podcast every single day and or night, whether that's on Apple Podcasts or through Spotify. We do appreciate each and every one of you for subscribing, for listening, for taking part in our show. We do appreciate it. You can also follow us on our socials via Twitter or X, however you'd like to know it as. You can do so at Last Row Podcast. If you are on TikTok Live, welcome into the chat. You can follow us on TikTok at last.row.podcast. Make sure you check out our website, www.lastrowpodcast.com. There you can find links to all of our sponsors, who we are so thankful for, including our good friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling. All right, well, let's not waste any time, shall we? Let's get into the last couple days here in the world of sports. And look, let's just be honest here. There's a lot happening right now in the NFL, especially. The big news of the day was a bit of a shocker. I'm not going to deny it. Let's talk about it. We'll address the elephant in the room, and that is the Chicago Bears. And the Bears now need another offensive lineman because their starting offensive lineman, with whom they signed a 4-year deal with just last season, is now gone. Drew Dalman has now retired. And I just have to be honest with you. It was a shock to me. It was absolutely stunning. And I don't know necessarily why. I can speculate here, and I'm going to. But, Drew Dalman was a Stanford graduate who was a very smart guy and has a number of different options. His father was a player and a coach. Drew could certainly go into that. Thank you, John. Appreciate the sorry for the loss. Thank you. And so, look, I mean, the Bears have now a big gaping hole right in the center of that offensive line that they've got to address. And there are rumors already circulating about potentially Tyler Linderbaum being involved in Chicago. There's also some talk and some rumblings, if you will, regarding other centers that could be available. And one of those names that is currently out there is the former center for the Washington Commanders, who is now a free agent. Tyler, I believe you say Biadasz. He's a Commander starter. He started 80 games over the last few years and is probably on a same-ish level as Drew Dalman. Honestly, if I were the Bears, what I would do, and this is just me, I would get in contact right away with Tyler Linderbaum, see if there is anything mutual there, and if there is, then I figure out a way to make that happen some way, somehow. Whether that's restructuring major contracts with Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, whether that is trading some of those guys. We know about the potential for Max Crosby being a Chicago Bear, and there are lots of rumors right now circulating regarding that. And for that, and with those rumors, look, Max has stated that he wants to play in Chicago. Albert Breer, a longtime NFL reporter, has said that the Bears are the favorite. Las Vegas, the sports books, if you will, not the team, but the sports books, they have the Bears right now favored to land him. So, and there's a little bit of backstory here with Drew Dahlman. It didn't just come out of the blue today. Per Adam Johns from the Athletic, who's as dialed in as anybody is on the Bears, said that there were rumblings at the combine last week that the Bears had interest in veteran centers and centers in the draft. I thought it could be for depth reasons with Ryan Bates being a free agent, but now it looks like it was a lot more with the Drew Dahlman news. Dahlman had alerted the Bears to this, that he was kind of thinking about retirement, and that obviously makes sense now why the Bears were reaching out, and there were even overtures last week, and Albert Breer said this, and he reported it today that the Bears were getting in contact as early as last week with Tyler Linderbaum's representation to see if there was any mutual interest. And if there was, well, then that makes perfect sense as to why the Bears were doing that. It's because they knew Drew Dahlman was going to retire. And with Dahlman retiring, and with Dahlman, for lack of a better term, putting his family first, which I can't argue with. He's putting his health and his family first, which I get. I understand. I feel that, look, the Bears knew this was coming, and it was not a shock, according to a lot, even though the Bears were trying to get him to stay. They were trying to talk him into one more year. Because, look, he was the anchor, the centerpiece, if you will, of one of the best offensive lines in football last year. Chance, we'll get to that. Hey, by the way, good to see you. It's been a while. Yeah, Devontae, we just talked about that. He didn't want to end up like his dad who played and who's now a coach. And so Dahlman retires after 4 years. 5 years. He was 4 years in Atlanta as a starter, 1 year in Chicago. Now, there are some benefits to the Bears for this happening. They will get back a good chunk of the signing bonus. They're only on the hook for the $4 million of that signing bonus, and they will get $10 million back this season in the cap. So that automatically makes this a little bit easier to swallow and deal with. But the Bears do have a gaping hole now at center that they have to address. So it's up to Ryan Poles and Jeff King to get that taken care of, and I'm sure they will. I have no doubt about that. Chauncey, you asked about the Seahawks being for sale. That was something that they talked about right before the Super Bowl. That the Allen estate that owns the Seattle Seahawks is going to be up for sale. And something else that happened today with the Miami Dolphins and their owner, Stephen Ross, selling some of the minority stakes that he had in the team will ultimately, and this was for like billions of dollars. I want to say it was like $12.8 billion. That will most assuredly make the Seahawks, who are the defending, to take a line from a very wise man, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. And with that, that will make them more valuable. And so that's why the estate, the Allen estate, is selling the Seahawks at this point, because they want to unload it. They recognize the value of it, and they're going to do so. Jeff Bezos is a name that I've heard is very interested in it. Bezos, though, has also been interested in the Bears. So we'll have to see what that brings. Certainly, though, that was one of the talking points of Media Week at the Super Bowl was, if the Seahawks win, they could fetch a huge number because they're the defending Super Bowl champions, and rightfully so. And look, that's part of the allure of selling them at this point in time is you're going to have generational upon generational upon generational wealth with these. With this sale. and it's going to ultimately allow the Allen estate to get out of it, and they'll be able to donate most of that money to charity, I'm sure, like they will do, as they've done in years past. They are one of the, from everything I know and I've read, they are one of the most giving um, ownership groups that there has been. So, we'll have to see who buys it. I think ultimately the Allen estate will sell obviously to the highest bidder. I think they're going to want to. I think though the other part of this too, and this is, Chaunch, to your point, that makes sense is that the Allens I think are going to want to sell this to somebody that's like them, like minded in that regard. So maybe it's somebody. I'm going to throw a name out. I don't know anything. I don't know if he's got the money for it. I don't know, but I know that there has been interest for a number of years from Mark Cuban and just owning an NFL team. So maybe he goes in on Seattle. Who knows? That's a possibility. But yeah, Brad, we had talked about that and how that impacts the Bears. It's a positive and a negative. Look, the negative side of it is you have a gaping hole now at center that you need to fix. The anchor of your offensive line is gone, but you saved $10 million on the cap. So there were rumblings last week at the Combine that this was coming for multiple reports, not just Adam Johns from The Athletic, but there were other people that had gotten wind of it and held on to the story and didn't report it, obviously, for multiple reasons, which is what you do. And then at that point, the Bears started sniffing around Tyler Linderbaum, the center from the Washington Commanders. Today they hosted Tyler Biadasz as with a visit, and they've got a hole now that they've got to fill, and I think that they will. There's also the talk. There's also the talk of them, and Devontae, you read my mind like you always do. The talk of trades happening, including Tyson Bagent potentially to the Arizona Cardinals now that Kyler Murray has been designated for release when the league year opens. According to reports, the Bears are looking for either Arizona's 3 or 4. So the third or the fourth round. If you can get a third round pick for Tyson Bagent or a fourth round pick, absolutely you do it. That pick could be used on, I don't know, maybe a center that you could need or you could use. I think defensively, look, here's the perfect option for Chicago, okay? You take that $10 million and you say, okay, Tyler Linderbaum, we're going to give you 3 years, $30 million. I know he's going to command, I've seen reports 4 years, $80 million, potentially. Okay, I don't know if the Bears are going to go that heavy for him. I don't think they can, number one. They would have to restructure a ton of contracts, make multiple trades to get under contract and to get out from the cap hell that they're in currently. But if they could convince Tyler Linderbaum to come to Chicago with the guys that, look, we're going to pay you 3 years, $30 million, $10 million a year. Once that 3 year is over, we're going to renegotiate your contract. We're going to pay you X amount of years at X amount of dollars to give you what you want and need. You have the opportunity right away to play for a potential Super Bowl contending team. So you get Linderbaum as your center. At left tackle, you go and you get a 1-year rental with Braxton Jones if Trent Williams isn't available. And I don't believe with the Bears cap situation that he's going to be. There's no way that he could be. And it wouldn't be feasible for Chicago. So why not go and get Braxton Jones back, who knows the offense because he was with Ben Johnson a year ago. Bring him in as your left tackle. He's serviceable. He's not going to be great, but he's serviceable. At that point, you've addressed your center position and you've addressed your left tackle. Now, if you were to trade for Max Crosby, which is, according to the Vegas sports books, the Bears are the favorite to land him currently, and according to Albert Breer and multiple other reports, Max wants to play in Chicago. So whether or not it happens tonight, tomorrow, the next day, whatever, you trade DJ Moore, you trade Tremaine Edmonds to the Raiders and your first-round pick. Thus, you're addressing two needs that the Raiders have at linebacker with Tremaine Edmonds and DJ Moore at wide receiver. You're giving up only one draft pick. You could then deal Tyson Bagent to Arizona, recoup a draft pick, and you have Max Crosby, Tyler Linderbaum, and Braxton Jones, three holes that you currently have. Yes, you're giving up your first-round draft pick. I understand that. But you're recouping a pick later on because, thankfully, this draft is deep enough on defense where you can get some help in rounds 2, rounds 3. If you get a compensatory pick from the NFL, which they are still reviewing, that could bode well for another third-round pick. So if you could get 2 threes, one from Bagent, one from Atlanta for the Ian Cunningham signing, you know what? Then go get it. Now, if they can't make the Max Crosby trade work, then look, I think the next logical option is going to be Trey Hendrickson, who's a free agent. You don't have to give anything up. From there, you could take some of the money that you saved in the, for lack of a better term, you take the money that you saved in the Drew Dahlman deal, and now you would absolutely be able to sign a center that is as good or, maybe better than Drew Dahlman. And again, there are some people that feel that the Bears could sign somebody that's as good as Drew Dahlman that wouldn't cost nearly as much as Tyler Linderbaum. Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Mr. First Down, my guy? Yeah, good, better, best. You got it, man. You got it. So, yeah, I feel that it puts a wrinkle in what they're doing this season, this offseason. It absolutely throws them a curveball that they were not expecting. But I think that if they can't get Linderbaum, if the Bears can't, and per Mr. First Down, who knows everything Tennessee Titan, he says the Titans are getting him. There are reports out of New York that make sense that the Giants would go after him because, well, quite honestly, he has the relationship with John Harbaugh. And I feel that the Bears could then get another center that, again, doesn't cost as much, but could absolutely fill the shoes with the Bears. And I think, yeah, and the Commanders center, Biadasz, he is, he visited Chicago today. So, and they knew about this. And this was something that was coming per last week, per a few different Bears reporters that they had been kind of alerted to this. And look, I don't doubt the fact that they knew it was coming. So it's a matter at this point of, look, the Bears have a, yeah, right? They the Bears have their work cut out for them. Now, Benjamin Albright, and look, let's Matt Bowen, big Chicago guy, longtime NFL player, great analyst on ESPN. If you get the opportunity to watch him or to listen to him or to read him, he is as dialed in my opinion, as any analyst is in football. Knows defense like the back of his hand. Guy can spot things left and right. Phenomenal guy. Would love to have him on this show. But free agent centers per his top 100 free agent rankings. Tyler Linderbaum, Connor McGovern, who is essentially Tyler Linderbaum except a little cheaper, or Drew Dalman except a little cheaper. Cade Mays, Tyler Biadasz, and then Sean Ryan. So those are your top 5 free agent centers. If the Bears can land one of those guys, one of the top 3, whether it's Linderbaum, McGovern, or Mays, or even Biadasz, I think that's serviceable. You definitely have to get a left tackle. You have to. And I hope that they are able to somehow swing a left tackle either in free agency or in the draft. But I'm not holding my breath. I have a feeling Braxton Jones will be your starting left tackle. You could get him cheap. And from there, then you've got it. And look, there are a number of people, Brad, that feel the same way that you do. And I'm one of those normally. Look, if I could get an edge rusher, Max Crosby, and I could get rid of DJ Moore and Tremaine Edmonds, somehow or another keep my number 1 pick, and maybe trade a 3rd rounder at that point, maybe the compensatory pick from Atlanta, then you know what? I would do that if they get that comp pick. If they don't, then I'll trade my 3rd rounder and hope that I get the comp pick from Atlanta. Then maybe your draft capital isn't so steep at that point. Maybe the loss doesn't sting as much because then you still have your 1. Then you could get Max Crosby. You could get your defensive tackle that you need so desperately in the draft. Caleb Bakes is a name that I see from Florida, linked to the Bears quite a bit. So there's that part of it. I feel that if you can do that and you get younger in the linebacker area, because look, this draft is deep on linebackers, and there are a lot of linebackers that are fast, that are athletic, that would immediately make you better. I don't think there's any question the Bears would do that. You then bring Braxton Jones in, or you get a guy in the draft that was from a big-name program that is a left tackle. Look, you could absolutely do that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Look, this news sucks for the Bears. I'm just going to shoot straight, okay? It's horrible news. This was a spot you weren't banking on having to either draft or sign. You wanted that money allocated somewhere else. And maybe if the price is too steep and Ben doesn't want to give up draft capital, which I understand, he may not. If he doesn't, that's okay. Then, you know what? Go out and sign Trey Hendrickson. 2-3-year deal. He'd be 34 at that point if it's a 3-year deal. He knows Dennis Allen's defense. The biggest issue with Trey Hendrickson, biggest issue with him, he's got to stay healthy. And if he can't stay healthy, then you know what? If the math doesn't math, you know what? 2-year deal, 1-year deal. Prove it. Get him on a prove it contract. So, look, Chonch, I think the fact that I might be stuck on lineman because right now you have 2 gaping holes. You have a left tackle that you have to fix because Ozzie Trapillo won't be back, and you've got a center that you've got to get. On top of that, your defensive line has to get, your whole defense has to get younger. That's why I think this draft you're going to have a younger, or you're going to see them be you're going to see them draft defense this year. I think they have to. You have to get younger on defense. TJ Edwards is older. Jalen Johnson is older. Jalen Johnson looked old and slow. You're going to need at least one safety, if not two. You're getting rid of Tremaine Edmonds. Your linebacking core needs to get faster. You need a defensive tackle to stop the run. You need edge rushers. I mean, look, you have a lot of holes right now on your team. And you have to build your offensive line from the inside out, right? And so that's the only way you're going to win is by having a solid offensive line. Look, the Bears went from one of the worst offensive lines to one of the best, and they were in the playoffs. They were in the divisional round of the playoffs with a shot to go to the NFC title game if their defense could have stopped Matt Stafford, which they didn't. So you've got to have an offensive line. You've got to have a revamped defense. You have to. And whether that is through the draft, whether that's through free agency, look, they've got to do some cap work. They've got to make the math at this point. And so that's why I'm so heavy on linemen. Because, look, if you control the trenches on the offense, you're extending drives. If you control the line on the defense, you're ending drives. Plain and simple. Then you're getting your offense a short field. You're getting turnovers potentially. Look, we saw in the Super Bowl Seattle's front four get home. We saw them get home. And guess what? Seattle won the Super Bowl because they kept Sam Darnold upright on the offensive side. They ran the football. And the defensive line got pressure with the front four. That's how you're going to win. I don't care who your quarterback is. If you do all three of those things, guess what? You're going to win. And the Bears last year did it for the most part. They kept Caleb upright. He didn't turn the ball over really. You ran the football really, really well with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. And your defense got a lot of turnovers in spite of not having a defensive line. Exactly, Brad. Yeah, you're right. And Devontae, you're spot on too. Look, people didn't think the Bears were going to be good. People thought, they're a 7-win team. They're a 6-win team. And look, I was one of them. I didn't think they were. I thought 8-9 would be a good year. I thought 8-9 would be good, and I would be happy with that. I don't think they got lucky, TikToker, and the reason why I say that is because, look, they put up a hell of a fight in the wild card game against Green Bay, their biggest rival. They put up a hell of a fight against St. Louis, who was perennially one of the best teams in the NFC all season. So, ooh, I like that take, Josh. I like that take. Yes, I like that. Okay, I'm dying to know your thoughts on this. Why do you say that? That's a hot take, and doggone it, I like it. Give me your thoughts on that. Dak being done in Dallas. I'm down for that. So where does Dak go? Who does Dallas bring in then? Who does Dallas bring in? Certainly not going to be Cooper Rush. Honestly, look, we can talk about Dallas because they're one of the other favorites to land Max Crosby. They're one of the other teams right now besides the Bears that are favorites to land Max Crosby. Now, I don't know what they would have to give up. But it makes me nervous that the Bears, according to reports, the Bears have submitted 3 different proposals to Las Vegas. I don't know if this is true or not. It's just something I've seen on TikTok or on, on X. Um, I'm wondering whom Dallas would have to give up. It makes me wonder about their cap situation. It makes me wonder about their draft capital. Um, but I will say this much: it makes Dallas and their defense instantaneous. Look, anybody that Max Crosby goes to is going to be a better defense. It's the Micah Parsons, Khalil Mack effect. I saw somebody in the chat say that they would re-sign Mack on a 2-year deal. We talked about that last night on TikTok. Super duper late because of technical issues. And look, I'll be honest here. If you could get Khalil Mack back on a 2-year cheap deal, I'd do it. Have him be a rotational piece, not necessarily an every down lineman. I mean, think about that. You could have Montez Sweat, Max Crosby, Khalil Mack, and then Austin Booker as your 4 defensive end. Look, I think that'd be okay. I'd be okay with that rotation. Then you could have some veteran leadership, like help young Dominique Robinson as your edge. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Oh, listen, Brad. I love a good hot take like that, whether or not it makes sense or not. I think that look, I think Brian Schottenheimer being hired in Dallas as your head coach is a good thing for Dak Prescott. Look, I think Dak Prescott getting when Mike McCarthy left, I thought that was the worst thing for Dak because Mike McCarthy really brought Dak Prescott along. I wouldn't be shocked, and look, I'm not going to say anything necessarily that Chaunch is wrong here, and here's why. There's a possibility somehow, some way, that if the Packers don't, or excuse me, the Packers, good grief, if the Steelers don't like what they have in Will Howard, okay? If Aaron Rodgers comes back for 1 year, and Aaron Rodgers tells Mike McCarthy, Mike, he doesn't have it. He's not grasping stuff. I could easily see how the Steelers may trade some draft capital for a quarterback that knows this offense because, look, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play past, I don't think, 1 more year. I think we could probably all agree on that. I don't think it's going to – it's the – again, I don't think they would do it. I don't think he's going to. So he has his swan song this year. Then next year, Pittsburgh's in the market for a quarterback. I mean, there are crazier things that could happen. And I think you could have a scenario in which Dak Prescott goes to the Steelers for maybe a first rounder or a second rounder or a couple first rounders or a couple, draft picks, a first and a second. Because, I mean, look, Dak was a fourth rounder, right? But he's played way above where he should, and he knows the Mike McCarthy offense. It's not out of the realm of possibility. We've seen Jerry Jones do dumber things, right? I mean, we've seen Jerry Jones give up his best defensive player for Kenny Clark. And that wasn't very good. And now they're releasing Kenny Clark. So you gave Micah Parsons up for essentially nothing. So we've seen that, number one. Number two, if Dallas misses the playoffs again, that's a big if, I could see Jerry getting restless with Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach. I could see that. And then at that point, you might have him bringing in Dan Quinn, or you could have him bring in Cliff Kingsbury, an offensive guy who's from Texas, played at Texas Tech, coached at Texas Tech. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, again, if the Cowboys miss the playoffs this season, I think there could be legitimate heat on Brian Schottenheimer. And I don't think that's unfair. You're an offensive-minded head coach who has a quarterback that has a who has consistently put up 4,000 every year, and you've got CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, you've got an okay running game, and yet you miss the playoffs because why? Defense is bad, offense doesn't get the job done, head coach isn't that good of a head coach, maybe a better OC or quarterbacks coach realistically. Look, Brian Schottenheimer's offense realistically in many years in the NFL has not been a top tier offense. I think that it's worth noting that he's been an OC in a number of different locations and has always been a couple years and done. He's not somebody that sticks around. So that's why I feel like if they don't do well in the playoffs, or if they don't get to the playoffs this year, there's a chance that could happen. You think they do a 3-way trade Dak to the Steelers? Lamar, how does Lamar end up in Dallas? Who goes to Baltimore then? Look, when Jerry Jones first took over the Cowboys, and if you have not watched the Dallas Cowboys documentary on Netflix, I highly recommend it. I'm not a Cowboys guy by any means, but it was fascinating to watch. When Jerry Jones made that trade back in '89 with Herschel Walker, and it's known as the Herschel Walker deal, that allowed them to get Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith. That at the time was whoa, what are they doing? Why are they what is this guy that owns oil companies? You know, what the hell is he doing? Kind of thing, and it worked out for the best because they brought Jimmy Johnson in, they brought Dave Wannstedt in, Tony Wise, Norm. I'm blanking on Norm's name. Anyway, Norv Turner. They brought Norv Turner in as the OC, and look, they won 3 Super Bowls. So, look, I think that Dallas, there are things there that make sense. And Brad, I agree, but as long as Jerry's kids are involved, not going to happen. Steven has his hands all over that team. Yes, we talked about that today. Losing Drew Dalman, it hurts. That's a big deal, obviously. And that's a problem, of course. But there are some positives for that. You're saving $10 million on the cap, which is good, which is a good thing. So, yeah. Lamar has also done in Baltimore. Look, Chauncey, you're not wrong there because there have been reports per Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk with NBC that say the front office in Baltimore is a little tired of Lamar. And I had a discussion today with one of the guys that I work with in our office that Lamar, in my opinion, is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL because he is never on the field enough for the contract that he's being paid for. But number two, that's why I believe Baltimore is interested in potentially moving on from him. Now, who would they get to replace him? Well, the prevailing logic would have been, Tua Tagovailoa from Miami or, Fernando Mendoza with trading with the Raiders for the number 1 overall pick, so on and so forth. So, I think that it could make sense. Look, I don't think Ty Simpson's getting past 16 at the Jets. I think the Jets could have Ty Simpson at 16 if they wanted him. And there's a lot of mock drafts that are saying the same thing right now. And I don't think that's a bad pick for New York. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but I don't think it's a bad pick. Because I think Aaron Glenn's going to go with defense with the number 2 pick, and he should. It's a defensive heavy draft. Yeah, draft picks to Baltimore, sure, absolutely. But you've got to make. Oh, and look, Tay, I agree with you. I don't think the Raiders are going to make that trade, but certainly if you're Vegas, if Baltimore calls and says, "Hey, we'll give you Lamar Jackson for the number 1," I think they think about it. I don't know if they do it, but I think they think about it. Look, Murph, I agree. They draft Ty Simpson. They're set back 7 more years. Look, I don't know if Aaron Glenn gets out of there after this season, no matter who they have at quarterback. I don't care if Kirk Cousins is there. I don't care if it's Broadway Joe Namath back in his heyday. There's no way, if Aaron Glenn's defense is as bad as it was, there's no way that Glenn will be around. Woody Johnson, look, for everybody that talks about Bill Baldwell in Arizona being bad, look, and everybody hates on the McCaskies, and I'm one of the biggest haters on the McCaskies for Chicago. Woody Johnson's an idiot in New York, and him dictating who Aaron Glenn can hire and who can call the defense. Get your nose out of the football business, dude. Just be the president of the frickin' Jets, own the Jets, whatever you are, and let the coach do what he's supposed to do. And that's why I think so many coaches end up getting out of New York, is because you have an overbearing owner that likes to be a helicopter parent. And I think he has nothing good to do with the nothing good to do with the Jets. Nothing good to do. All right, we're going to take a quick time out here. We are going to hear from our good friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling. And then when we come back, we've got a little bit of breaking news. Nothing too crazy, okay? But it is certainly worth noting for Major League Baseball. So we'll get to that here in a minute. But first, a word from our friends at I Know a Guy Remodeling. You know what separates contenders from pretenders? Off-season moves, smart investments, big upgrades, fixing weaknesses before the season starts. So let's talk about your house. That outdated kitchen, it's a defensive liability. That cramped bathroom, it's a cap space disaster. That unfinished basement, wasted potential. You can sit back and trust the process, or you can make a splash signing. I Know a Guy Remodeling. They come in, they assess the roster, and build you a championship-level space. No gimmicks, no drama, just professional, reliable results. This spring, make the move that changes everything. Because banners don't hang themselves. You can check out a link to their Facebook page on our website, www.lastrowpodcast.com. Because everybody deserves to know a guy. And now, you do. I Know a Guy Remodeling. All right, let's talk here for a quick moment. Arizona State leads number 14, Kansas, by 20 at half. That is as bad of a first half as you'll see Kansas play. Bill Self getting ejected is certainly a big deal. JT, good evening. How are you, sir? Bill Self getting ejected in in that first half. I don't know what that does for KU. Um, I don't know how that impacts or what good that does. I understand getting getting a technical or whatever, or getting kicked out, to kind of put a spark in your team, but I don't believe that did that at all. I believe that it absolutely makes KU worse. And I fear that for Kansas, they had such a good start to the year. All of a sudden they're starting to fade a little bit. And I think a lot of that has to do with Bill Self maybe not having as much control as he wants on the team. Because look, as much as we don't want to talk about this, it's a massive issue in college sports right now, and that's the super agents that are telling their players to sit out, that are telling their players to take it easy because of NIL and because of draft status and all of that. So there's that element to it. So that's one thing. Real quick, a little bit of breaking baseball news that just broke here over the last hour or so, and that is per Jeff Passan, per Bob Nightingale, per a multitude of other baseball writers. Okay, Jackson Profar, who has been one of the bright young spots in Major League Baseball, per Jeff Passan, is facing a 162-game suspension after testing positive for a performance-enhancing drug. It's now official. Right around an hour ago, Major League Baseball announcing that Jurickson Profar, tested positive for exogenous testosterone. His 162-game suspension begins Friday. Profar can still appeal it. The last time a PED suspension was overturned via grievance was more than a decade ago. So Atlanta is down one of their best players in Profar. That's big news. That's very big news. The fact that it's come out that it was testosterone, that's a problem. And look, Profar has been a really solid player for Atlanta. Not anymore. Not after this. Not after this season. Because this now has completely tainted him. And look, this just goes as a big this goes as a big loss for them. And I feel like it puts a big sting on his career. And I believe that it's going to be he's starting to get known as one of the worst cheaters. And I feel that it's Profar has nobody to blame here but himself. Nobody to blame but himself. All right, Tay, you think Michigan's cutting the nets down? Okay. Monty, you went to the St. John's Georgetown game. Why wasn't it pretty? I'm curious to know. I am curious to know. I'm not filling out a bracket. I never do. I feel like there are at least 12 to 15 teams this season that could ultimately cut down the nets. Michigan being one of them. I feel like, man, oh man, I tell you what, Georgia. I'm not saying Georgia's going to win it. Let me rephrase that. But Georgia's really been on a good run here. Yeah, and I'm actually watching the highlights right now, Monty. Yeah, St. John's 72-69 over Georgetown. I mean, look, you're going to have games like that. You're going to have games like that, and that's absolutely you're going to have that every now and again. And good on Patino and his team for getting through it. Good on them for that. Good on them for figuring out a way to win. And sometimes you got to do that. And it's March. Things are absolutely tightening up in March. So there's that. Um, yeah. So yeah, they shot 28% in the first half. Obviously, it's not good enough for Patino. He's not going to be happy about that. Um, again, I think that there's a good shot here that you have anywhere from 12 to 15 teams that could do it, that could win it. And I think it's absolutely a great opportunity for this to be one of the most wide open March Madness tournaments that we've had. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be very interesting. I think that we're going to have potentially a number of big name programs that may not get out of the round of 32 because of how deep this tournament is already. And with that, again, it could be a look. We could see where, like, I remember a few years ago when George Mason got into the Final Four, and it was the Cinderella story, so on and so forth. You could have that again this year if a team gets hot at the right time. That absolutely could happen. Um, I feel though like it's going to be very interesting to see how the seeding goes because within the seeding, you've got locations, you've got um, advantages for some teams, disadvantages for others. I mean, look, I hate it when they and I'm just going to shoot from the hip here, okay? I absolutely hate it when they make an East Coast team, and I'll just use St. John's here as an example, or UConn. We'll use UConn. It drives me nuts when they make them travel out to Tacoma, Washington to play in the first round of the tournament. I think that's absolutely so stupid. Um, look, have your West Coast teams, play in, you know, Colorado. Don't make them come across the coast to play. That's just stupid. That's just bad. Now, does it create interesting matchups? Absolutely, it does every now and again. But more than likely, it doesn't allow. I mean, okay, you're going to have fans travel no matter where you go, right? So if you've got Gonzaga traveling from, Washington to play in, Charlotte in the first round of the tournament, Gonzaga fans are going to travel. We know that, okay? UConn fans are going to travel. Yeah, Monty, I thought that's kind of the purpose, but I don't know necessarily if it works right. I mean, I just don't know. So I feel that this could be. It's going to be a wide open tournament. I think. I think it's going to be. Look, I think there's a real good opportunity for a team that maybe we haven't seen in the Final Four for a while get to the Final Four. I mean, look, I'm just going to use this as an example. You've heard me talk about them, but I don't believe it's going to happen. But you could have a team like Illinois, who on paper is as stacked as they come. You could have them get hot and make a run. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just using them as an example. Okay? But again, I feel that you could have a team like that and they could make a run. They absolutely could. Yeah, and I get that, Monty. I get that. And I get the disliking behind it, and I agree with you for the most part. I don't think it's fair if St. John's gets their first round home games at Madison Square Garden, but if you make them go to Cleveland for the first round, and I don't wherever, somewhere that's not necessarily a home game, but that's more East Coast versus in New York, I think that's more of a fair play, if you will. Yeah, I mean, I know they do every year. Well, and it's because Greensboro has always been a staple for the NCAA's. It always has been. And look, let's be honest here. It's all about money. It's a money draw. So if you can have Duke and or UNC there, you're going to do it. And if you do it that way, you're going to draw big. So have a Carolina team in there. Same with Illinois traveling to Miami, to play down in Florida or whatever. You know what I mean? You're gonna have teams, that travel well, like the Dukes, like the North Carolinas, like UConns, like Gonzaga, Kansas. You're gonna have those teams that are going to travel well. Yeah, I agree. Kansas always seems to be near, Kansas City or St. Louis or, somewhere like that. I agree. I agree with you on that. Couple of other things here in terms of NFL notes, real quick, if we can get back to the NFL real quick, to talk about. We mentioned that Trey Hendrickson is going to be, Trey Hendrickson being a free agent. That certainly opens things up. You have some running backs that are going to be available, like Kenneth Walker III. I think DeAndre Swift could be available as well. But I don't necessarily know what you feel like or what could happen with some of these running backs. Bobby Okereke from the New York Giants, he's going to be released. He's a starting linebacker that is a big name player over the last 3 seasons in New York when they haven't been very good. In total, he's had 385 tackles, 143 last year alone. He was entering year 4 of his 4-year, $40 million deal. He was due to make $9 million. He would be a perfect fit in Chicago, I think. He would be a nice replacement for Tremaine Edmonds. A.J. Brown, no, I haven't forgotten him, Chaunch. I promise you. According to one of the guys that I work with, he says Baltimore is very interested in A.J. Brown and trading Isaiah Likely for A.J. Brown. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's kind of garbage. I think A.J. Brown goes somewhere like New England. I think New England would give up the farm for him. The problem is with A.J. Brown, and I'll shoot from the hip on this. If he doesn't get the ball, he's not a happy camper. And I feel like if that happens, you're in the same exact boat that you're in now. You're in the same boat. And with that, when you have A.J. Brown not getting the ball, being a secondary option because for whatever reason your tight end's having a good game, or for whatever reason your running back is playing better and is running the ball well, and A.J. doesn't get the ball, he gets upset. And then from there, then you get drama. So I think somebody or somewhere like New England would make sense, reuniting him with Mike Vrabel. No, I'm not saying he's going to Chicago. Absolutely not. No. I don't want him in Chicago. But what I'm saying is I think that overall, I think, him going with Him going to Vrabel in New England, I think, would make sense. I think him going out to Vegas could make sense with Fernando Mendoza. Did I say the Bears? Is that why, Monty, you said that? If I said that, I do apologize. He could go to Buffalo. He absolutely could. But I think it's going to be incumbent on whatever coach gets him. You've got to have an authoritarian type coach, I feel like, to rein him in a little bit, because I think he's a ticking time bomb. I'll just be honest. I do. I think if he doesn't get what he wants, he gets angry, and he doesn't want to play, and I think that's a problem. You've got Breece Hall getting tagged today by the Jets, which we knew that was going to happen. Daniel Jones from the Colts gets the transition tag. That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, I mean, look, that's a great, Monty, that's a great call on your part. I really like the thought of him being in Denver with Sean Payton. Friendly offense or veteran coach with a good offense, big wide receiver. That makes sense. I like that. I think that's a great landing spot for him. The question is, what do you have to give up? What do you have to give up to get him? Or how much do you have to pay him? That's the other part of it. The one that surprises me is the Giants getting rid of Bobby Okereke. That surprises me. I'm not sure why when they're giving up Kayvon Thibodeau as well. There's talk of them dealing him. I don't know why you would give up your leading tackler or one of your leading tacklers. Of course, you're trying to get younger, and I get that, but I don't know necessarily how that makes sense for it. But again, Daniel Jones should get a good contract from the Colts. Okereke, I think, could be a really nice fit in Chicago. I think he could be a good fit in really any defense that he goes to. He'll make that team better. So, there's that element to it. I'm just shocked that John Harbaugh would want to get rid of a really good linebacker like that. But I mean, maybe he'll draft somebody. And again, this defense, or this draft, defensively is very, very deep. So I think that's a good move. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. There are a lot of people, though, that are saying, the Bears could look at a center in the draft, but I don't believe that's going to be the case. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Cardinals have informed Kyler Murray they're releasing him. We knew that was going to happen. Arizona already owes him $36.8 million guaranteed. Another $19.5 million would have triggered on March 15th after the league year had started. He's now moving on. Watch for Minnesota to jump on him. Watch for Minnesota to jump. I would be shocked if Miami did. I think Miami's going to go hard after Malik Willis when the league year opens. Monty, you mentioned Trey Hendrickson being a fit in Chicago. I think if the asking price from Vegas is too much, then I agree with you. If Ben Johnson doesn't want to give up too much draft capital, he's going to look that way. He'll look that way. So we'll have to see what happens. It's going to be very interesting over the next week or so, and we're going to be here for it. So, with that being said, that's going to put a bow on this edition of the Last Row Podcast. I want to thank you so much for listening, wherever it is you are listening, whether that's through Apple Podcasts or through Spotify. If you are joining us on TikTok Live, thank you so much. We will be back with you tomorrow night when potential breaking news changes everything. We'll be here for it. So until next time, I'll see you in the last row.